Inside the Oval Office today, a meeting took place that rippled far beyond the polished furniture and marble fireplace of America's most famous political chamber. US President Donald Trump sat shoulder to shoulder with Poland's newly elected President Karol Nawrocki. On its face, it was a ceremonial gathering, the kind that fills diplomatic calendars. But behind the smiles, cameras and handshakes, this encounter carried weighty signals for Moscow, for Kiev and for America's allies across Europe. The stakes were unmistakable. The war in Ukraine has now stretched deep into its fourth year with no sign of a ceasefire. Russia shows little willingness to end its offensive, and Ukraine, though resolute, faces dwindling resources, a weary population, and the constant fear of escalation. Into this tense backdrop, Trump delivered a message, one cloaked in ambiguity, yet sharpened with threat. As the cameras rolled, the Polish president made history. He declared in words that echoed across Warsaw that for the first time in modern Polish memory, the presence of foreign troops on Polish soil was not a burden, but a relief. American soldiers, once symbols of occupation in the painful past, were now welcomed as protectors. It was an extraordinary reversal, born of fear of Russian aggression and trust in America's military shield. Then came Trump's remarks, delivered with his characteristic mix of bluntness and calculated vagueness. Looking directly into the cameras, he said of Russia's Vladimir Putin, "He knows where I stand and he'll make a decision one way or the other. Whatever his decision is, we'll either be happy about it or unhappy, and if we're unhappy about it, you'll see things happen." It was a phrase designed to be replayed, analyzed, and debated. You'll see things happen. What exactly did the American president mean? More sanctions, diplomatic isolation, or, in the most dramatic reading, the possibility of military steps? He left the world guessing. Pressed further by reporters, Trump referenced a deadline of his own making. 2 weeks given to Putin to agree to peace talks with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. That deadline, nearly expired, now hangs over Washington's corridors of power. Trump insisted he would soon know exactly what's happening, hinting that his direct conversation with Putin was imminent. To allies, it was reassurance that the US president was engaged. To critics, it was yet another sign of his unpredictable style, part improvisation, part brinkmanship. When challenged on whether he had acted decisively against Russia, Trump bristled. He pointed to sanctions on India, a major purchaser of Russian oil, framing them as proof of bold action. His words underscored a wider truth. Washington's measures have indeed tightened the screws on Moscow, but the Kremlin has adapted, redirecting trade eastward and deepening its reliance on China. To Trump's supporters, his policies show strength. To opponents, they risk alienating partners and inflaming tensions without altering Russia's calculus. Turning to his Polish counterpart, Trump struck a tone of solidarity. He assured Nawrocki that US troops in Poland were not up for debate. Unlike discussions about scaling back American commitments elsewhere, Poland's security was non-negotiable. For Warsaw, long haunted by its history between great powers, that pledge was priceless. But in typical Trump fashion, the conversation veered suddenly inward. He shifted from Europe's front lines to America's own cities, suggesting National Guard deployments to Chicago or New Orleans. The pivot was jarring, yet revealing. In Trump's worldview, security challenges at home and abroad are part of one continuous battle. Criminal gangs and Russian tanks, both, in his telling, threaten stability, both demand decisive action. Taken together, this Oval Office exchange offered a window into Trump's governing style. His approach remains deeply personal, rooted in direct threats, transactional deals, and theatrical ambiguity. He relishes leaving options open, forcing adversaries and allies alike to calculate what things he might do next. For Poland, the reassurance was real. American troops would stay and perhaps even expand. For Ukraine, the hope is that Trump's looming conversation with Putin might unlock some path to peace, or at least bring sharper consequences for Moscow's defiance. For Russia, the message was equal parts warning and opportunity: comply with Washington's push for talks or face penalties not yet spelled out. Yet the ambiguity cuts both ways. Europe, already uneasy about divisions within NATO and uncertain about America's long-term reliability, must parse Trump's words carefully. Is the United States prepared to escalate sanctions further, perhaps targeting sectors of Russia's economy not yet touched? Or could Trump, after his conversation with Putin, soften his tone, preferring deal-making over confrontation? The lack of clarity is both his strength and his risk. the ripple effects reach beyond Europe. Sanctioning India, one of the world's largest energy consumers and a key US partner in Asia, demonstrates just how global this chess match has become. Washington's efforts to choke Russia's revenues now collide with the energy needs of rising powers, forcing choices that reshape alliances far outside the European theatre. Meanwhile, in Ukraine itself, Zelensky waits. His calls for stronger sanctions and sustained military aid have grown more urgent as the war drags on. Trump's 2-week deadline, now nearly expired, could mark a turning point. Either a new wave of coordinated pressure on Moscow or another period of strategic limbo. And hovering over it all is the unpredictability of Trump's leadership. His critics argue that veiled threats without clear follow-through risk emboldening adversaries. His supporters counter that unpredictability is itself a weapon, keeping opponents off balance and giving the US leverage. For Poland, today's Oval Office visit is already a success, a visible reminder of America's commitment. For Ukraine, it is a waiting game. For Russia, a warning cloaked in mystery. And for the world, another glimpse of a presidency that thrives on leaving its next move just out of reach. Tonight, the phrase lingers in the air, "You'll see things happen." Exactly what things and when remains the question shaping the next chapter of this conflict.
Good. Yeah. Nawrocki.
I've got to get it. And the president's been amazing. You got to get yourself a new job, because if you remember, 2 weeks ago I said, if India, you know, they actually think there is a disease. It's called Trump derangement syndrome. They've got it. No.
Great. And we are waiting for 32 F-35s in Poland. So it all. This is the first time in Polish history, in 20th century and the 21st century, that the Poles are happy that we have foreign soldiers in Poland. So
you get a deduction when you buy a car. Nobody's ever seen. And by the way, they're selling cars like crazy. Cars are. I have no message to President Putin. He knows where I stand, and he'll make a decision one way or the other. Whatever his decision is, we'll either be happy about it or unhappy. And if we're unhappy about it, you'll see things happen.
You gave Vladimir Putin a 2-week deadline to agree to talks with Vladimir Zelensky. That deadline is now nearly approached. Can you give us any indication when you will make a decision?
Well, I'm having a conversation with him very shortly, and I'll know pretty much what we're going to be doing. We've taken very strong action, as you know, and in other ways we've taken very strong action. But I'll be speaking to him over the next few days, and we're going to see.
With who, sir?
I'm going to know exactly what's happening. But I'm not happy with all the people. You got 7,000. Who are you with?
I'm with Polish media.
Okay. How do you know there's no action? Would you say that putting secondary sanctions on India, the largest purchaser outside of China, they're almost equal, would you say there was no action? That cost hundreds of billions of dollars to Russia. You call that no action? And I haven't done phase 2 yet or phase 3. But when you say there's no action, I think you ought to get yourself a new job. Because if you remember, 2 weeks ago I said, if India buys, India's got big problems, and that's what happened. So don't tell me about that. Go ahead. Special, and Poland is in that category. We have a very special relationship. It's like the question about the soldiers that was asked. We never even thought in terms of removing soldiers from Poland. We do think about it with regard to other countries, but we would never know. We're with Poland all the way, and we will help Poland protect itself. Los Angeles. So we're making a determination now. Do we go to Chicago, or do we go to a place like New Orleans, where we have a great governor, Jeff Landry, who wants us to come in and straighten out a very nice section of this country that's become quite tough, quite bad. So we're going to be going to maybe Louisiana, and you have New Orleans, which has a crime problem. We'll straighten that out in about 2 weeks. It'll take us 2 weeks, easier than D.C. But we could straighten out Chicago. All they have to do is ask us to go into Chicago.